It's showtime. Speaking of things to hate about Brazil, technical shit, tech issues, guys. Today was a hell of a day. My internet kept going on and off all day,
Mm-hmm.
and I was lucky to teach the classes that I taught. One of them I missed. I had to do it like half through WhatsApp on my phone. But anyway, welcome to the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust much more than Brazilian internet. And I'm here with my friend Pete, and we like to talk about this beautiful country called Brazil and the ups and downs and everything. What's up, Pete?
Yeah, things are good. I actually had a really good internet day until my last class. Then it started going on and off, but so far so good. Um, Busy as fuck. I did 7 jobs today. Got 8 tomorrow, 8 Wednesday, and 8 Thursday. So it's the beginning of a long ass week.
Yeah, man, I've been working a lot too, and I hope everybody out there in expat land is working a lot and getting their life back together because I know it was a weird beginning of the year. Or, well, actually, no, beginning of last year, and then things kind of settled down. So, welcome, guys. Sorry I'm a little bit late. We got my friend Ralph here. He's a trip. Where's the fucking show? So Brazilian. Nothing starts on time. No respect for time. I'll see you when I get there. It's too
Yeah, I
much. I
think
love
we'll be
Ralph.
talking about that a little later.
Yes, we will. No, he's a good dude. From Vitória, Ralphie from Vitória. And yeah, so guys, the show was there, but then the computer decided no, right? Like at 9:50, it just said, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Um, and there's not much you can do. So I had to turn off the computer, turn it back on, and I think we are somewhat operational now. If let us know in the comments if you can hear us. And I had opened up. Well, today, by the way, we're going to be talking about 10 things that we hate about Brazil. 2 weeks ago, we talked about things that we love. We had a little bit of a love fest. So today, we're going to talk about the things that piss us off. But before we go there, Catherine was so nice. She was on our podcast. Well, she was listening last time, and she had asked about some seafood dishes. I tried to do some research on why it's so expensive, why shrimp is so expensive and stuff like that. I couldn't find anything concrete aside from what I had already said. Infrastructure in the country is not that great. Transportation, if you're living far away from the sea, stuff will tend to get more expensive. Um, and, that's just pretty much the only answer I could find. But she had asked about some Brazilian seafood dishes, and I found a nice little article here. One of my 20 tabs that are open, which is probably why my computer died. But we got this sopa de leão veloso, okay, which is from Rio, seafood soup, okay, named after a Brazilian diplomat, okay, who developed a taste for bouillabaisse during his service in France. Is that how you say that? So
Yeah,
he
I think so.
tweaked the dish a little bit from the French, and then you got this dish right there. Casquinha de siri. Oh, I've had this. This is kind of good. Okay. Casquinha de siri is a traditional dish consisting of creamy crab cakes served on a shell. It's made with a
Oh,
combination of crab meat,
nice.
crustless bread, coconut milk, tomatoes, onions, yuca flour, bell peppers, green. I have had this. Delicious. The moqueca is the big one, man. I mean, moqueca is just delicious. This is the moqueca baiana. Okay, and there's a bit of a rivalry. Speaking of Ralphie, he's from Vitória, between the moqueca baiana and the moqueca from Espírito Santos. They're both good, man, but that moqueca from Espírito Santos, I had never had it before I went there to Vitória, and it was fucking delicious. A little bit more soupy, it's like a caldo,
Hmm.
like they call it here, like a stew. But they're both great, but there's a little bit of a rivalry of which one is the best. And basically, it's white fish, shrimp, and other seafood combined with coconut milk, dende, palm oil, lime juice, various other vegetables. Guys, don't what's that line from Jurassic Park from Hammond? We spared no expense. Spare no expense when it comes to a muqueca. You don't want to have a half-assed muqueca. If it costs 40, 50 reais or more, spend it because, at a nice place and you will not be upset. Oh, there it is. I just talked about it. Look, Moqueca Capixaba. That's the one
Mm.
from Vitoria that I had. And man, this was delicious. Absolutely delicious. I had never had it before. Really good. Bobo de camarão. I've had this before. A classic dish of the Brazilian Bahia region. Bobo is a stew made with pureed cassava, fresh shrimp, coconut milk, and dende palm oil. The word bobo comes from the Iwi people who were brought to Brazil as slaves, denoting a dish made with beans. Although there are no beans in bobo de camarões, today, due to the fact that the Afro-Brazilian enthusiastically took to cassava when they were first introduced to it. So there's that. And then yeah, moqueca is the dish, man. Moqueca is just it's the one. So if you're out there looking for good seafood dishes, these are some of the ones that I would recommend because I'm not big on seafood. Um, Aside from that, Catherine, and anybody else that's listening, we do have something in a lot of restaurants, which are it's called cação. Okay, and what is cação? It's pretty much like the fish of the day. It would be almost like well, that's not a good picture. Uh, você come cação, but it'll be just there you go. You got like cação de peixe cozido. Let me turn the volume down in case they're playing any. There you go. And it's just your kind of your generic fish. Like in the US, we have bass. It's just like a fish that
Hmm.
is easily found. And most restaurants will have something made with cação, which is really, really good. Merzula, I think, is another fish that they have down here, which I kind of dig. I think it's called Merzula. Yeah, fish, and that's a pretty popular one that you can fry up, and it's pretty delicious. So that's for the what do you call them? The pescatarians in the audience, and some fish stuff. But guys, tonight the issue is hatred. Hate, 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 hate.
Hmm.
Let it all hang out. Let all your stress hang out. And by the way, thanks everybody that has listened and has been listening, and definitely love that you put likes on the video because it shows up more on searches. So please like, please subscribe, and share the video. We're here again, labor of love. We do this because we enjoy talking to you guys. Um, but let me see if I can do a cute little thing, which is this right here. Boom. And there I am. I'm green with anger. Okay. Things to hate about Brazil. And we're going to go and through that blog piece that I had written a few years back. I think it was 2016. And I did it as a two-parter. And you know what's funny is I'm in a lot of expat groups, and if you say anything bad about Brazil, they get really angry. The folks that are from here, the natives, and even some of the
Yeah.
expats. And so I
I
said,
think the expats tend to get angrier, actually.
yeah, you know what? I tend to agree with you. So I did this article, one because it's, just things I really was feeling after being here for a while, but two, as a test. I was like, let me write 10 things that I love and 10 things that I hate. And you know which article got double the amount of views? No surprise there. Things that I hate
Yeah.
about Brazil. And I was like, dude, you know, I tried my best to be nice, and I was very sincere in my niceness. But apparently, as they say, if it bleeds, it leads. So it was mostly that got most repercussion. So, like I said, this is a
Yeah.
companion piece to 10 things that I love about Brazil.
Well,
Um,
I think with the expats, the thing that comes in is that a lot of them come here with a lot of money and they live very insulated lives. So a lot of the more negative things they don't get exposure to. And they're like, "What? My life is great. What are you fucking bitching about?" It's like, motherfucker, you've never had to live on 1,200 AIs a month, you piece of shit.
I feel you. I feel you. It tends to get a little bit isolated. In fact, that brings up a topic that we can talk about later. Is like things to do and not do if you come to Brazil as an expat. And one of those things, guys, is just don't build a little island around yourself. Like you're in another country, discover it. Okay, discover it. So we're gonna start off with number one for me. I mean, this is in no particular
Yeah,
order,
it's
but
my
this
number
just
one by
happens.
far. By
Yeah, it just
far.
happens
Whatever
to be
number
number
two
one,
is,
but
no,
it's
but whatever number two is, it is a distant second. Like by
dude,
miles.
that's a crime. Brazil has a lot of
Yes.
crime, guys, and
Yes.
it's the thing. Well, somebody said hate is a very triggered word. It is. It is. Love is too, which was what I had titled the last one. So love, hate.
Yeah.
Um, so unfortunately, like for me, as much as I love so much about Brazil, I love Sao Paulo. It's always that one thing that's in the back of your mind, like, oh man,
Hmm.
it's after 8 o'clock or after 9 o'clock. Should I take my phone with me to this real cool party or not? Like it or not, it's
Yes.
in the back of your head. Should I go down this street with this person I met that says that there's a nice bar or not? It's
Yeah.
just
You,
always
you
there.
shouldn't. You never should.
Well, I agree with you to an extent, but yeah. So the crime statistics here, guys, are really wild. I know some folks like to say, "Oh, there's crime in every country." Good evening, global. Who is Global Go Getter? Give me a name, because I have people on here that I don't know what your internet handle is. But I may know you. So I was reading here in Gazeta do Povo, and it says one person was murdered in Brazil every 10 minutes in the first half of the year. In comparison to the first 6 months of 2009, there was a 7% increase in homicides. So,
Yeah.
dude, that's
Yeah.
25,712 people murdered between January and June. Now, some of that is police killing
Yeah.
people. They kind of join them all together, but it's still a lot. Like there had
I
been
think
these
the high
studies.
point was 68,000. I think it was 2017 or 2018. The homicide
Yes,
rate each 68,000. It's like,
that's more than
Jesus
Syria.
Christ. Yeah.
Uh, dude. So this is 25,000, so we have the possibility of getting to 50,000. So there was a drop. Like Pete said,
Yes,
we reached this high,
it's gone
but
down a lot under our great helmsman Bolsonaro with
but
his
it's
tough on
going
crime
but
policies.
it's sneaking back up.
It
That's the
is, yeah.
problem.
But
It's
it did
sneaking
drop
back.
by almost 10,000, I think.
I found
I'm
this.
sure COVID had a lot to do with that too. Less people on the streets means fewer people to murder.
This is true. COVID has allowed for the crime to go down, but also more people are, because Brazil is crime of opportunity. That's the one thing about the
Yeah.
crime here that I can sort of deal with. Like in the US, somebody's gonna beat you up because you walk down the wrong street in the wrong neighborhood. Like, what you doing here, white boy, right? Pete, like Pete was telling me that story about him on the bus with the black dude who's like, you don't want to go down there. What was it?
Yeah,
You
but he
going
was
to
nice. He
Watts?
didn't beat me up.
No, I know. He was
Watts,
giving you the
yes.
warning. He was giving you the warning
Yeah.
of what was going to happen to you. So I've had that experience in the U.S., but in a very Confederate flag filled neighborhood, let's say, where my friend was like, "Yeah, it's almost 5 o'clock. You might want to think about packing up your things and going home." That's very nice about it. Um, so the U.S. has this type of crime, which is really frustrating. Because it's based on idiocy, not to what do you call it? Say that the crime down here is okay, but at least it makes sense. It's like somebody needs your phone because they want to either buy some coke or, you know, uh, pay for something, whatever they do with your money. But it's crime of opportunity. So when the unemployment rate is high, crime is up. Like there's a very relative way that you can look at it and say, okay, when the country's economy is bad, crime is up. When the economy is good, crime is down. Because generally, I mean, aside from some places that are just really whacked out of their minds, because Brazil is a huge country, but generally, I feel Brazilians aren't as violent as Americans. I don't know if that's your perception, Pete. Like for the most part, they just kind of want to have
They're just not
drinks.
as they're just not as well armed. I think is the difference.
But Brazilians were armed for a long time, up till like 2006. It was legal to have guns here. So I don't think that's it. I think it's just for the most part, Brazilians. Okay, they have a lot of bark. They'll start fights like yelling and yelling and yelling, but it's hard for these guys to throw a punch. Like I've seen fights that never happened. It was like 10, 15 minutes of them just
Yeah,
yelling at each other. I'm like, come on, like somebody throw a punch. And, or, in my experience in the US, you go to a club in New York, in Philly, you just look at somebody the wrong way by mistake, and it's already, look, what's up? Like, why are you looking at me? Like here,
yeah,
you bump into somebody, it's like, oh, just scoop a, oh, no. Before you know, you're drinking beers together. Like, generally, it doesn't seem like Brazilians leave their house ready to, like, kill somebody or fight somebody like in the US. So the
right.
crimes that happen
Yeah,
here,
average citizens though, but like there are a lot of people here that are, they're basically professional criminals. That's what they do for a living. They rob people, and I think there's a lot more of that here than there is in the U.S.
this is true, but don't you think that that's because of the less opportunity here?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yes. Not to sound too progressive, but that's a little bit of the
God
progressive
forbid.
stance. It's like they're victims of society. Um, and they're not wrong in a certain way. It's just where they take that line is kind of ridiculous, but they're not wrong in a way. It's like, yeah, you have no opportunity here. You have millions of people below the line of poverty. Even in our city, it's incredible, guys. There's a site that I found, uh, oh God, I can't remember it now. But anyway, you would put the amount that you made, per month, and it would give you where you are in the percentile of wealth in the city of São Paulo. If you're making anything above 3,000 reais a month, which right now, if you're looking at the exchange rate, is like under, how much, like $500 maybe. Um, a month, you're like in the top 10%, you know? And then you jump
Yeah,
up to 5,000, all of a sudden you're like in the 5%. Like I'm very close to being a 1%er in Brazil,
yeah,
which is
yeah. Me
wacky.
too. I'm doing about 5,000 a month now. So yeah,
That's wacky to think that. So there's the opportunity here is so lacking that yes, it produces more criminals. The educational system is terrible. See, now I'm sounding ultra progressive here, but it's facts.
yeah,
There's the education system is crappy. So what you get is opportunistic crimes. You got a phone. That phone can get me 100, $200. You got a car, that gets me even more. Um, so much so that even when the homicide rates were going down, other types of crimes weren't, like carjackings and things of that nature. I found
yeah.
this
COVID was
nice.
actually a better time for carjacking because there were fewer cars on the streets, fewer
I
witnesses.
know. Mm. So here we got 57,358 violent deaths. Uh, that's 27.5 deaths per
That's
100
good
million.
though. That's a big reduction.
Yeah, it's about the same as 2013. I mean, it's a reduction, but it's still kind of on a downward trend, that we were hoping wouldn't happen. We got 6,220 deaths due to police actions, and it's like a 19%
Yeah,
increase.
that's a
Wonder if there's any
lot.
correlation there. Okay. So 17 people dead per day due to police action. Then you have all these other stats here. This is a government site, by the way. The 66,000 cases of violent sexual assault. Uh, they have this thing here called feminicide. It's like killing of women.
Yeah.
Um, so they have all sorts of. Look at that, 490,000 cars stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also stealing cargo, like in those old mafia movies where they take some of the meat out the car and
No, no. I was watching that new Guy Ritchie armored car robbery thing the other night,
yeah.
and I mentioned that in the film group how rare it is for armored cars to get robbed. And Ron, who was on the podcast a few months ago, was like, "Yeah, not in Brazil, it isn't." And yeah, that's true. That sort of shit goes down here all the time.
Yeah, we had one right close, like in front of my house at the Extra down here. So yes,
Yeah,
it does happen all the time. Let me say hi to some folks that are coming in. Well, to work in Brazil is one thing. Wait, what the heck? My computer's just not up. Retiring here is another. Yes, so true. What Pete was saying earlier. A lot of people live in this isolated bubble, and they're like, "It's wonderful in Brazil," because you don't take your ass out there on the street and hustle every day. And he said he had better coke in New York City. Okay,
mm.
COVID-19 displaced.
I have to say it's not that bad here. Actually, maybe I just
Oh,
was in
really?
fortunate
Oh.
circumstances.
I'm an angel. COVID-19 displaced menial jobs, restaurant workers, etc., hence more crime. There you go. You were kind of saying that. Here, there's a habit to rob and to have violence at the same time, no witnesses. That's the thing. They have this thing, it's called latrocinio. Latrocinio is when you kill somebody after the act of committing a crime. That's down. But robberies aren't necessarily down, and muggings aren't down, but those latrocinios are down, which is good. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
kill somebody. And Huey, what's up, Huey? What's up? I was just talking to Huey on WhatsApp. I just met him today. He's a musician here in Sao Paulo. Plays the guitar, so I might steal him to play a little bit with us. So originally from Chicago. And the police aren't paid enough to go home to live in the favela where the criminal makes more money. There you go, guys. So it's puts for me it's the biggest black mark on Brazil is the crime. I can deal with the political corruption, I can deal with the lateness,
Yeah.
I can deal with this, I can deal with all of it. But just the feeling of depending on
Danger.
where I am, I can't just leave my house and be like, "Whoo, I'm chilled. I'm holding my phone out. Look at my brand new phone. I'm gonna make a call now." Like, can't really do that.
Hmm.
And some folks are, they like to say, "Oh, it's yeah, but I'm big and I'm tall and I'm strong and I don't ever have to worry about that." Well, but not everybody's like that. Some people are not big,
Yeah.
tall, and strong. Some are women. Some are white. And if you're a white person in Brazil, you're gonna be targeted more than a black person because they're gonna one, even if they didn't know you were an expat, white people have more money in Brazil. But if they
Hmm.
then find out that you're a gringo, forget about it. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors that go into that can be very stressful.
Yes. Yes. Our friend Latif, who is on the broadcast, is apparently never had any problems with crime and doesn't worry about it. But he's like a really giant black man. Like nobody is gonna fuck with that guy.
He's the Hulk, and he's
Yeah.
doing well.
Good.
Um,
Good.
uh,
Good. I
steady
may need his
progress,
services soon.
steady progress. So keep him in your prayers. But yeah, he's a big tough guy. Um, so anyway, guys, let's move on from crime and go into lack of commitment. I don't know how they manage to get married down here. Brazilians generally don't like confrontation. Okay,
Yep.
it's just part of their culture. So in order to avoid it, they simply lie to you. They say they're going to do something, but never give a date. They confirmed their presence at an event, but later they forgot that they had a family gathering the same day. They tell you they're interested in the project you're doing, but won't get back to you for further details. So, general rule, if you don't get a hard yes and
Yeah.
asterisk money in the bank the next day, it's probably a no. Okay.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
their
There.
maybes, you're like, let me
No.
think
No.
about it.
There is a saying that in Brazil, yes means maybe, and maybe means no.
Wait, say that again, Pete, because I was writing a message here. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah. There's a saying in Brazil: yes means maybe, and maybe means no.
Yes means
You're not,
maybe, and
and
maybe
maybe
means no.
means no.
I got
And
it. I got it.
you're not likely to hear no. Like it, Brazilians are really indirect in that way. Like you're very rarely going to hear the word no, but you will hear a lot of maybes, which means no.
Yes. And I don't know where that comes from. It just is what it is. Learn that quickly. And it's something that can still be aggravating after 10 years here, but it'll be less aggravating when you just accept it for what it is and you realize, okay, maybe you want to get a new client, maybe you want to hang out with some girl that you thought was cute or dude that you thought was cute, and you're just like, if you don't get that hard yes and like I'll be there tomorrow, then um forget about it. Just forget.
Yeah, by hard yes, Phil means yes with an exclamation mark. That's pretty much the
Yes.
only. Yeah, that's the firm confirmation you're gonna get. Is a
Yeah, like
yes with an
yes, like
exclamation mark.
here's my address, like
Yeah.
let's meet, or like yes, I'm in the Uber, let's go. That it's got to be that. It can't even be like a yes next week. Like for me, that's not a hard yes.
Yeah.
It's got to be yes. I'll be over in 10 minutes. Um,
Yeah.
and that brings me to another point that somebody brought up in the expat groups is ghosting. Okay.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I've
Yes,
been a victim
ghosting
of that.
is a real art down here. I mean, I know it's
Yes.
worldwide, so I'm not gonna shit on Brazil for that because I mean, it's an American word, so obviously it has U.S. or British
Yes.
origins. But down here, they've perfected it, because ghosting, at least
Yeah.
in my experience has I had always been like relationship ghosting, which is fine.
Right.
Okay, I mean it's kind of shitty, but okay, you don't want to hurt Pete's feelings. You don't like him anymore, so it makes sense in some twisted way. But
It
here
does. It
it's
does.
just whatever ghosting. It's like we were cool drinking buddies one week, and now like where are you? Have you died? We were playing tennis one week, and then where are you? Have you died? It's like ghosting for everything, including business. So be aware of that, guys. Be aware that ghosting is like hardcore down here. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
I had a girl I was dating for the better part of a year, like ghost me like I don't know, 24 hours after leaving my place. And I thought things were cool, man. I thought things were great. And, like the mature thing to do in that situation would be like, if you have an issue, just say, look, these are the problems, and this is why I don't think we should see each other anymore. And that's fine. But when like the person just suddenly blocks all avenues of communication for no stated reason, that's infuriating.
It is, and it happens a lot. I just had that happen to me this month, where
Yeah.
I met somebody very nice. We were hanging out every week, chilling. We even out watched some X Files together, and now
Oh, that dude, really?
he hasn't ghosted me though. That's the weird part. He hasn't ghosted me. He's just been like, quote unquote, very busy, like.
All right.
And he lives like down the street from me. So I'm like, you know what? I ain't chasing after this shit. So like I got ghosted by somebody else, but I understood that because he was dating somebody. So I can kind of get it, even though it's kind of shitty. He could have just said, "Look, I'm dating
Right.
somebody, and it ain't working. It ain't gonna work because I'm seeing you too much." So yeah, lack of commitment is a big issue here. Just know that. And our friend Carol is not here tonight. She usually drops in, but she's an expat in Mexico, and I was actually on her podcast. She's a really nice lady.
Yeah, I saw
And the
that
funny thing,
podcast.
she whenever she's here, she's always says it's not just Brazil. Like it seems like it's a Latin culture type thing. So those
I
of you
think
that
so. I
have,
think so.
you know, before we move on to number three, let's read some of the comments here because we got a lot of people commenting. Hello, Sid. Glad to finally reach out to Sid, man. And I apologize. I'm like a chicken with its head cut off during the week. So I apologize if I don't respond that quickly in the WhatsApps and everything. But I got to chat with Sid a little bit during the weekend when I did a 20-kilometer run this weekend. I went nuts.
Jesus.
I know, dude, because I got real sick on Friday. Like to the point where on Saturday I threw up in the middle of the street. Like I was walking home and I was just like, bah. And then when I get like this, I'm like, oh no, I need to run. I need to make sure that I'm not dying of something and that I have.
Right.
So that's what I did. I just went on Sunday and bah, bah, bah. Before I knew it, I was in another city. Um, so that's what I did. And let's see, Craig says that, yeah, conflict aversion, the shit aggravates the
Yes,
hell
I
out of
saw
me.
that comment.
Nobody here accepts blame. You will never hear, yes, it's my fault. This is so true.
Yes.
It's never anybody's fault. Um, Very frustrating. And I'm just used to it now, but it is for like the guys, I live in I guess it sounds weird in English, a back house, but it's just what they call it here, casa de fundos. It's like a house behind another house, which is behind a barber shop or something. And they
Above
were
a
having
barber
this.
shop.
It's a salon, right? It's
Yeah,
whatever.
but it's above. It's above. It's not behind.
No, it's behind. My house is
Well, it's
behind it.
it's
I mean,
behind and above
behind
because
and
you have
above.
to
Yes,
go.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But in either case, they were having some issues with their piping, and like stuff was backing up, and they were so quick to blame me and my dog, like, oh, it's the hair from your dog, and then, and I'm like, man, I just listen to them, but I'm like, there's no way my dog sheds that much hair and it's gonna blow all the way into your fucking salon. But I'll just listen to them. So then later they called in a plumber. Ends up it was their own
Barber
shit. Like
hair.
so
Yeah.
somebody had when they installed their toilet, they put like gravel in there or something, and eventually it like backed up. I didn't get one apology. I just was they all were just like, "Oh, we found out it was just the gravel from our own toilet." I was like, "Ah," like that's all I said. I was like, "Ah, okay." I don't like this much, but yes, nobody likes to accept blame, which is different when I do fuck up sometimes. Because hey, sometimes I'm working all week, and some poopy will be left in the yard a little bit longer than it should. So they'll be like, "Oh, you know, we can kind of smell some poopy from the dog." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just running around, and you know, no harm, no foul. I can accept that when I fuck shit up,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult to get that from Brazilians." Anyway,
Yes.
people say Disculpa for everything except when they should. Hi,
Yes.
Phil. What's up, Fina from New York? She's was one of like my first commenters way back when I was starting the Expat Journal. So nice to see you here. And Sid says he ain't running 20K. Don't worry, Sid. When you're down
No.
here in Sao Paulo, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Oh man, I really want to meet this guy when he comes down here. I think he said he's coming next month, so that'll be real cool. So, falseness number three. We're running through these guys. Falseness. Brazilians will lie to your face with a smile. So imagine a country inhabited by politicians. That's Brazil. It's gonna swoon you. It's gonna tell you how great you are, kiss your feet. But when it comes time for you to put all that love they have for you to good use, they have a tendency to disappear. Okay, so it's a combination of lack of commitment in this that make it really hard to get any work done. So you're probably going to be surrounded by a lot of yes men and women, and they're ultra pumped up by this. But then when it comes time to really put their money where their mouth is. It's just they just not there, you know. And some of the falseness is very malicious. Okay, it almost feels like Brazilians want to live their own personal soap operas. So we're gonna get to drama a little bit later. But I think it comes more from this non-committal, non-confrontational thing. They don't want to hurt your feelings. Um, but have you had this experience with the Brazilian falseness of how great you are, Pete? Oh, Pete, you're wonderful. Oh, it's Ada.
Um,
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Pete. It's
that's
Ada in
okay.
Brazil. Is that Ada with this picture? I thought it was somebody else. I'm sorry, Ada. Apologies. But I love Ada, which I'm sorry, Pete. Aside here.
Yeah.
Uh, I finally got to meet Ada after so many times. So big shout out and much love to her in Lauren, which I met too, which is a really sweet lady. But Ada, I've been trying to meet with her. And excuse me if I'm mispronouncing your name. I say Ada. Is it Ada? Um, but I have been trying to meet this woman for so long because she's got this real positive energy. I know her from all the expat groups, and I would always miss her by like minutes, literally minutes. One time, speaking of Watif, one time was a Watif get together at this fruit juice bar, and I had just come from a night of drinking. I was totally hungover, but I'm like, I'm going because when Watif puts something together, I tend to go because there's always interesting people there. And Ada was like, I'll be there. And I'm like, yes, I'll finally get to meet you. Dude, I kid you not. I had arrived. She had just left like 5 minutes before me because she just had something else to do. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to meet this woman. Never. But then she showed up to one of my shows at Chaos Bar. And I got to meet her, but I put that in air quotes. I want to really get to hang out with you, have some tea, stuff like that. So we'll definitely do that. But I'm sorry to cut you off, Pete. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would say that this is just an extension of the lack of commitment. I think it's basically the same thing. Um, Unwillingness to say what you really mean. And this is where a lot of that comes from. I don't think it's intentional a lot of the time. Um, Although, actually, one experience this reminds me of is the one with your associate Marcio, who you hooked me up with last year, and that just ended badly. It was like a terrible communication breakdown, and he was like, "You know what? We can't work together." And I was thinking at the time I really needed the work, so I was like, "That sucks." But once things picked up otherwise, just like, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. I don't need you either. Um, the whole thing was, first of all, none of his staff speaks English. He communicates through his staff, who only speak Portuguese. And they asked me for availability, and then I gave them my availability, and they gave me a schedule that started in like 2 hours. And I was like, first of all, it's really unprofessional to expect somebody to start on 2 hours' notice. And second, my schedule is already subject to change. So that availability doesn't apply anymore. I can't do it. And yeah, the next day, the guy was like, well, we can't work with you anymore. And that was
Yeah,
it.
I don't want to say too much about that,
Yeah,
dude.
obviously
Uh,
you can, but
no, I can. I totally like. I'm in your position now, where I don't necessarily need any work from him, but I just got a little bit frustrated with a little bit lack of communication. But anyway, yes, this is a little bit of the falseness, which relates to lack of communication skills and just the ability to tell you to your face, look, I can do this with you. I can't do that with you. And if I say like, there's this really nice lady named Anna, who, she offers me classes every once in a while. And I'm just upfront with her. I'm like, look, I can't do this time, or I could 2 weeks ago, but I just got a student now. And you know what? We still chat. She still sends me stuff, but she's not Brazilian, sometimes she sends me
right,
translation work or something else. She understands that, things move about, or even the place I've been working for like 10, 11 years, Unique, is an English school. I teach like two classes for them, sometimes three, but they totally get it. It's like, okay, oh, you really wanted that time, but I just got a student at that time. Sorry, but doesn't mean
Yeah,
they're never gonna offer me something again. So yes, way different way of working. And Sid is telling me he's not gonna run 20 kilometers with me. That's crazy, man. Um,
yeah,
Here's a classic line. I love you, amigo. You're great. Can you lend me some money? Oh man, I do not lend money.
no,
And it
that's never happened to me. That's never happened to me actually, because
really.
I most of my Brazilian friends met me when I have no money, so they just assume I still don't.
Mm. Well, I cut out lending money, or at the most, what I do is if it's something that I really like, you know, I just already go in with the idea of like, I'm not lending you money. Like in my head, I say this, I'm like, I'm not lending you money. I'm giving you these, 50 or
Yeah,
100 reais because I know I'm never
exactly.
going to
Never
see it
lend
again.
more than you can afford to lose.
Yes, like I know I'm never going to see it again. I mean, I had an ex that I think it took him about 6 years to give me back 50 reais, you know? And I remembered because I'm like, dude, I know it's not a lot of money, but it's still something that you took from me that you said you're going to give me back. And then he asked me for like 6 years later, like, oh, can you lend me 20 bucks or something? I'm like, you still owe me 50.
Yeah.
He was like, what? And I was like, yeah, you still owe me 50 reais. Don't you remember? So I'm like that. Like, if I owe somebody like 10 cents, I'm there. Like, actually, I do that sometimes. Like, I'll buy something from a little dude that has a little stand at the corner of the street. And yeah, I won't have I'll be missing like 20 cents. I'm like, I'll be back tomorrow. And then I'm back the next day and he's like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, like, I don't know. It's it's a real pet
I
peeve of mine.
I did have this weird experience with a roommate. I was in the market for a new phone, and he'd smashed up his screen, but his phone still worked. So he offered to sell it to me for 150 reais. And so I bought it, and then he told me, like, look, my parents said they were gonna buy me a new phone, but it's gonna be a little late in arriving. So can I have my phone back? So I gave it to him, and then he came to me like 4 or 5 days later and said, yeah, my mental health isn't good. So my parents are taking me back to my hometown. I was like, what about my 150 AIs, motherfucker? He's like, oh, I'll send it. It's like, yeah, do you think I got it?
Someday, at least you're not going through a situation. This person will remain nameless, but he knew
Yeah.
this guy for about 4 6 months in a quebrada near in Zona Leste. It's an American dude that lives in the quebrada with his girlfriend. So anyway, if this guy asks him, "Oh, can you sell me your phone?" He's like, "Well, I kind of need this one, but I got an old one." So he gives the guy the phone because the guy says, "I'll get you the money like tomorrow." Just that tomorrow turns into next week, turns into the week after. So he keeps pressing him, the American dude. And he's a young kid. He's like 23, 24. And then the guy, lifts his shirt up to show his gun. And you're like, listen, I run this place. And then he's got like these four other thugs come out of the woods. And I was like, ah, shit, you never see that phone. So it's like going back to the non-committal that really mixes with this
And the
one about
crime.
false and the crime. Yes, guys, if you're gonna sell anything, do any business, money in hand. Like it's like
Yeah.
what's that dude from Popeye? The hamburger dude. Like, two burgers
Wimpy.
today.
Wimpy.
Yes, I'll give me two burgers
Gladly
for
pay you
today.
Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Yes, there you go. And that's Brazilian. That's Brazil. It's sad to say, but it just is. And for those that are just coming on, we are talking about 10 things that we hate about Brazil, a very triggering word. And it's a companion piece to 10 things that we love about Brazil. So if you feel at any moment, if you do feel triggered at any moment, like we're going on a xenophobic hate
Yeah.
fest tonight,
Go watch the Love
go
podcast.
watch the Love Fest. Exactly, it's there. It got 111 views. So a bunch of people watched it. Thank you those that have watched it. But tonight we're venting. We are venting. First question: do you rent or own your apartment or house? That is a very frustrating question, and I teach when I'm teaching, I tell students, don't ask Americans about their salary or their house or anything like that. It's very rude, but they're sizing you up. I learned that quickly when I would invite
Hmm.
Brazilian friends to my house. Oh, how much do you pay here? And I learned to
Yeah,
say, oh, yeah, it's a little expensive, or it's too more than I want to, or more than I can afford. Like that's the answer I
they
give. I don't
they
say
are more indirect than the Chinese, though. I would say the Chinese will flat out ask you, "How much money do you make?" They will they will literally say that.
Yeah, I've
So
never had
Brazilians
anybody
aren't that
ask me
bad.
that here. Yeah, like exact figures, but they do ask what you do, and I've noticed like people size me up when I do that. Like I just met somebody this weekend who was like, we were just getting it, like we were, doing heavy petting, as they say. So, but then in the middle of this, it's like, oh, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I just flat out said, oh, não gosto de falar de trabalho. Like, I do a lot of things. I don't like to talk about work. Like, that's been my answer. And I know
Hmm.
that's the cold shoulder answer that turns Brazilians off, and I probably lose dates because of stuff like that. But that's just me protecting myself because I've been taken advantage of based on what
Yeah,
people think I make based on what I say I do. So, depending on where I am, I don't even like people to say that I'm American. People, oh, he's American. I have a couple friends that love to say that. Like when I'm around, he's American. He's American. I'm like, oh my god, like don't even say that. Because I can blend in. I don't mind being Brazilian for the night, and I am technically. I was born here, so yeah, people size you up, man. They size you up, and it's not
yeah.
to size you up to rob you technically, but to just come live in your house. You know.
Yes, and then another thing is, are you driving or do you have a car? Like they ask the car question a lot because that's a big status symbol as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, man, I took the bus. Or, no,
Yeah.
I ran 20 kilometers to get here. Let's see what Ralphie's got to say here. You can spend all night at a barbecue, drinking and eating with someone, and the next day you pass the person in the street, and he or she doesn't even say hello. Walk on by. Do, 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 do. Yes. Or acknowledge your presence. And this is so true, too. This is absolutely true. Um, and that goes into speaking of the what we love about Brazil. Like the positive side of that is that you can just go out all night, drink,
Yeah.
and eat, and have fun with these total strangers like you've known them your whole life, which is an
Yeah.
experience I've never had in the U.S. Um, and it's just wonderful. It's just you got to know that the flip side of that is, yeah, they're probably not going to call you the next day. Once you're okay with that, you have a really good time here, and you can
Single
really
serving friends.
exactly. And then Ralphie, he when I sent him a message, when I posted the WhatsApp in the WhatsApp group about the podcast, he was like, "I'm going to bed," but he's on here. He's on fire, man. And we'll have you on, Ralphie. I keep promising to have you on, but we will definitely because I want to talk to you about Victoria. I want to talk to you about Victoria. Although next podcast, next Brazil Expat Journal, we will probably be talking about dating in Brazil, relationship woes. So get ready for that. My greatest with Renee, our friend Renee. My greatest
Wonderful.
cultural, I know, my greatest cultural changes were working for money to working for no money, changing my love of baseball to soccer, and giving up my fascination with tits for ass.
Well, you can have both actually.
You can have both in Brazil. Nowadays, you can because Brazilian women discovered plastic surgery or breast augmentation surgery. Number four, red tape. There's a lot of it.
Mm,
Now, check this story out. I once knew a guy that needed a document, but to get that document, he needed another document from another government agency. When he arrived at that other government agency, they said they could only give him that document if he had the other document from the first agency that had sent him there in the first place. True story. I remember I met this guy, and he
Uh,
left Brazil like 3 weeks later. So need I continue? So end of story is that he
yeah.
left Brazil, cursing the country out, and all he wanted is to buy a cell phone. And yes, you need a document for that. So the scary part is that this is not an isolated incident. The more you accept the red is the fifth color of the Brazilian flag, the fewer expletives per day you will utter. And man, oh man, red tape, bureaucracy. Do you deal with a lot of bureaucracy? Because you're kind of under the radar.
Yes, yes, but now I'm trying to get above the radar and I'm trying to decide which is worse because I think of the four countries that I've lived in, I think Canada is still the most bureaucratic. Like Brazil is less bureaucratic than Canada because this is my situation. Basically, I tried to renew my passport 2 years ago and they deemed it damaged, even though there was nothing wrong with it. For some reason, their machines wouldn't read it because it was my ID to get on job sites, and it had been handled by thousands of people probably. So yeah, it was running a little thin. So they said, no, you can't renew your passport. You have to apply for another one. And for that, you need photo ID. But my photo ID was my passport, and they fucking
Hmm.
took it. They're like, no, that's not valid anymore. Your passport gone. You don't even get it back, let alone get to use it as valid ID. So you need to get another piece of photo ID. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like not even a legal resident here. How am I going to get photo ID? They're like, not our problem. Tell you what, we can give you a passport that's good for 2 years and also won't be renewable. So I just took that because I really needed it. Now those 2 years are almost up and I'm trying to renew it. And I'm like, okay, dude, you got to get some Brazilian ID. And I'm looking into the, what is it, R&E application process. And when I go on the website to register for an appointment with the federal police, who may well arrest me and deport me because I've been here for 6 years illegally, I can't get one. They're just not really doing business right now. So I told this to Canada. I'm like, hey, dudes, like I'm trying to get an appointment. Even if I went back to Canada and applied for ID, I wouldn't be able to because number one, COVID would make it impossible. I'd be quarantined for 2 weeks upon my arrival, and 2 weeks would cost me all the business that I have right now. So that's not really an option. And I'm not a legal resident of any province in Canada. So I can't prove residency, therefore I can't get ID. So that's also fucked.
You're a man of the world.
Yes, yes, exactly. They should just have photo identification for that. But yeah, the
Good
bottom
to
line
know.
is, yeah, the police are backed up right now. There's no possibility of getting local ID before my passport expires. So I am doing the mature thing and just pretending this situation doesn't exist.
That's the most mature thing to do. And drinking to help you forget.
Yes, yes, that helps. That helps.
Yes. Now, I'll tell you, that's a crazy story. But wait till you get to actually go. I mean, imagine if you actually got to go to the federal police, then your headaches would begin. Obviously, I have no experience in Canada, but good Lord, the horror stories you hear here in Brazil makes me wonder. And it's from people all over the world. I don't know if there's a, if it gets any worse than here. The cartório is the biggest sham. The cartório is like the notary house. I'm sorry, I cannot accept
Yes,
your document. You need a certified original copy. What the fuck? And the worst thing about the federal police, and our friend Stephanie just went through this, is, and she was kind of getting, trying to do the same thing as you, getting her legal status. One, they don't have anybody in there that speaks English. You would think that they might
no,
want to have somebody that's bilingual, at the place where
yeah,
immigrants are coming in, but okay, they don't have anybody there that speaks English. Two, they give you this laundry list of documents that you need in order to do anything. But then when you at on the site, but then when you get there, there's always a document missing. There's always something you didn't bring. It's like
Yeah,
not no fail, and it's always got to be the original one. So you got to keep you got to have a copy of your original birth certificate, your
yeah,
original, if you ever got married, like some people have been fucked over here because they got divorced, but then they need like a copy of their original marriage certificate to show that their name changed. It's like every little thing
I
is just
know. I
good
know.
lord.
The birth certificate thing is a big deal too, because I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Canada, your birth certificate, like the one that you're issued if you just actually apply at a vital statistics office, it just lists like your date of birth, your full name, and your city of birth. But the Brazilians, they want the one that has your mother's maiden name on it and both your parents' full names and the name of the hospital. Like that's the
Yes.
one they want.
So
Like your and
it's
everyday
insane. And like
birth
we
certificate
joke, like bring
copy.
a vial of blood and some urine samples.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, just like an everyday birth certificate is not good enough.
Yes, yes. And no, I was just saying we joke around sometimes in the expat groups that you got to bring a vial of your blood and some urine samples if you want to get anything done in Brazil. Um, and the Cartario, I just had to go to Cartario. It's such a sham, man. It's like I just had to get a contract signed last week, and it was like 20 reais just to get a stupid contract signed, like get a stamp on it. It reminds me of when
Yeah.
I'm teaching U.S. history and how the American colonists revolted over the Stamp Act, when Britain was charging taxes on every piece of paper had to have a stamp on it. I'm like, oh my god! Like, had this happened back in Revolutionary times, they would have started a new country by now. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so federal
Canada is
police is
like
a
that
bitch.
too, though, man. Everything needs to be notarized.
Oh
It's
my
not
god.
that different.
Look at here. Craig said, when I applied for my RNE, the checklist stated that I needed passport photos. They didn't even use them. They take their own digital pics. Yeah, that's another thing. So what you walk around. No, that's the thing, dude. Like, what you end up doing here is you walk around with this little thing called the pasta. Everybody has the pasta. The pasta is not to eat, guys. It's the Portuguese word for a little folder, and that's all you gotta have. That I have like two pastas in my house, which are just these folders with everything, man, from diplomas to like a poem I got published in the newspaper, whatever, you know like anything that lets people know that I am me, because you never know when you're gonna need it. When I came to
Right.
Brazil, I had to deal with a little bit of this because although I was born here, I had zero documents from Brazil. And man, I was running from here, one side of the city, then the other side of the city, and then I had to like, oh, before you get this
Oh,
document, you need to
oh,
swear to the flag to get
yeah.
this and that. So there I am with like a bunch of 18-year-olds like enlisting for the army, and I'm there like doing a Hail Hitler because here they do a Hail Hitler to salute the flag. And I'm like, what am I
That's the
doing with my
thing,
little?
though, man. These places are never close together. Like
They're
you
never
have,
close together.
yeah, like every place you have to go could not possibly be farther from the next place you have to go.
Yes, they do have a place here now called Popa Tempo. I'm gonna write that down in the comments. And it's actually made some of this a little bit easier. Poupa Tempo literally means save time. So there's one, I think, downtown in Lapa, in Santo Amaro. I think there's one in Zona Leste, Itaquera. And they've kind of tried to make everything be just in this one huge building. And it's helped a little bit because I've lost my documents twice here in Brazil. And I was able to get them back pretty soon. Like you schedule online and you just show up on the day, you're in and out in like 15, 20 minutes. So they've tried to try to make things a little bit easier, but not always.
Well, look at the process of getting a bus card. If it's that difficult to get a bus card, imagine how hard it is to get something important.
Yes. No, that's a
To
great
get
way.
a bus card, it's ridiculous. You have to go on the SP Trans website and like fill out all your data. You need your CPF, of course. You have to upload a photo, blah blah blah, and then you can go to one of the five stations that actually issue them and apply for it. And then it's like a 3 day wait, and they'll give you your card.
Yeah. Yes. So that's Brazil in a nutshell. It's you gotta jump through a lot of hoops to get things done. And just know that you walk around with this little file with everything. Oh, what I was gonna mention, I was trying to remember, is that when I got my job at the high school that I work at now, and there I was, I went to the interview, the lady liked me, blah blah blah. I was like, "Whoo, I'm gonna get my first, like a contract job, with a little workbook," thinking that's it. Man, she gave me this piece of paper that had like, I kid you not, I think it was around 12 or 13 things that I needed to get. It was almost like that show like Supermarket Sweep, like one of those like, scavenger hunt type reality shows. Cause
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I had to open an account at some Caixa Econômica because that's where they were gonna get like my retirement money was gonna go in there, but then I had to go to this other bank to get this thing that I don't even know what it is. It's like Bees or I don't even know what it is, but I had to go to this other bank to make sure I had one of these numbers that I didn't even know I needed in my life, but I have one. And then I had to go to this other place to get this other document, this other place to make sure I got a copy that was notarized. I was like, all of this just to get a job. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
good fucking Lord. And I was worried. Like when I got that list, I got anxiety. I was like, oh my God, like, how can I do this in 2 weeks? And like Pete said, I was running up and down the city, going to like every possible place in order to get all these documents sorted out. Um, Beverly Horsey's on. Beverly was supposed to be our guest 2 weeks ago, but
Oh
then
no.
she wasn't able to get on, which was fine because I love Beverly. And
Ah, Beverly's
we,
great.
we love Beverly, so we will have you on, Beverly. We're on a different topic right now, but when Beverly comes on, she's going to be talking about long-term expatting because I believe she was in Brazil since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll just shoot the shit because Beverly's fun. And so, Beverly, you can't get on because, we're talking about a different topic tonight, but I'm glad you're here listening, and we'll set
Mm-hmm.
up the right time to get you on, and it'll be around this time. She's living a good life. She's retired, so sometimes she'll wake up like at 2 in the morning and watch zombie movies all night. Sometimes she'll wake up at 6 in the afternoon. She's just living the life. So um, Ada's got to go because her computer's freezing up. She'll catch up with the recording tomorrow. Thank you for jumping in. Well, we saw that with Craig. Oh, it's our guru Indiano. What's up? In my experience, the underlying philosophy of institutions here is to fuck people.
That's pretty blunt but accurate.
Um, I had luck getting a bus metro card same day, jeitinho style. Well, that was part of our things to love about Brazil. The jeitinho can work in your favor. If you got cash in hand, usually that's a big plus in making things run a little bit faster here in Brazil. I know what Pete is talking about. Registering the bus card, one of my first what the fuck moments in Brazil.
Yeah.
And Beverly, I guess when I was talking about getting my job at the high school, she's like, same at Cultura Inglesa, which is this big
Yeah.
uh, English school here. And yeah, dude, because that is also a what do you call it? They call it CLT job here. It's a contract job. Man, oh
Yeah.
man, you got to jump through hoops in order to get that little workbook signed. But once you got it, you just hang on to it and hope they don't fire you the next month because you're like, damn, I went through a lot of
Yeah.
shit to get this job. Moving ahead, we got drama. So Beverly said though she's been here. She was here since the '90s, so she's kind of like Alisa Sanders. another friend of mine. She got here, I think, 96. And I do have an
Yeah.
interview with her on the channel, guys. So listen to that. She's a great jazz singer here in Brazil. Drama! The world is a stage. No, Brazil is. So, um, Brazilians love their soap operas. It's the most highly rated television show on TV, obviously. And the thing is that it bleeds into their regular life. I had a friend of mine who used to call it Brahma, like, Brazilian drama, Brahma.
Yeah,
That she
yeah,
made
yeah,
up some
yeah.
word for it. So these arguments can start over which side of the bread one should put butter on. A little shout out to Dr. Seuss. And there's never a way to like quickly exit it, because somebody else needs to prove
Yeah.
their side of the argument. And after they prove their side, they want to make sure to bring it up again 6 months later. And the most frustrating part about the Brazilian argument is that since they decline to say what they really feel, and they don't like to commit to things, it's usually only an argument for the sake of argument. They don't want a resolution.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the quicker you learn this, the less likely it is that you fall into a Brazilian trap. Because there's a lot of emotions. If you're not ready for them or your culture is more reserved, prepare by doing some primal scream therapy. Shout out to Yoko Ono. And get to know your inner child. You will need it to survive. And do. I learned this quickly here. Like, people just want to argue for the sake, especially if you're namorando, if you're getting involved romantically, if you don't put your foot
Yeah.
down right away and just like, nah, like, I'm not gonna do this every day over, like, just argue over bullshit, you're done. You're gonna be just a little puppet for your significant other's emotional ups and downs. So I don't know, Pete, how do you feel about Brazilian drama?
I don't have much experience with it actually. It's amazing.
Good
I've
for
lived here
you.
7 years, and most of the Brazilians I know are pretty chill. They actually try and avoid drama.
Good for you,
I think,
man.
yeah, I think I've actually probably created more drama in my relationships with Brazilians than they have.
That's good. I my experience has been the opposite. It's like the Brazilians that I've met, gay, straight, white, black, doesn't matter. It's like they're living their own personal soap opera. And sometimes it's not drama like they want to fight, but like, you're just trying to leave your house and like somebody just needs to tell you something that's really like intense and amazing, like about their neighbor or something. They're like, I don't need to know this shit. Like, I don't care. Or like, I'll be at a bar and somebody just wants to open up about their life and this, and I'm like, God damn it! Like, I'm just trying to have a drink.
Yeah,
Aside, okay, go ahead.
I will actually. I do have an experience with this, and this is why I'm living here and not the place I moved in September. It was instant drama. It was a Republica. And for anyone listening who's not familiar with the term Republica, it's basically shared housing. We have it in Canada too. It's a house that's subdivided into individual rooms and everybody shares space. And the problem with this place was there were two guys that had been there for a really long time. One of them was a cop who had lived there for 10 years, but he was like a civil cop, not like somebody you need to be intimidated by. And he was kind of a loser because he was renting a room for 500 a month. So not really a very successful person. And I don't know, man, like he gossiped about everybody. Like I think his thing was for him because he'd been there the longest to create this living environment that was to his satisfaction.
Mm,
And the manager of the building was like a really Christian lady. And I think she kind of trusted him because he'd lived there for a long time and he was a
oh,
cop. So he had credibility and he would just like talk shit about people like over trivial shit like like this person left their ketchup bottle on the table or some shit like that, and she would just like, okay, like, Gustavo says this guy can't be here, this girl can't be here, and she just kind of let him. He was really manipulative. Let him micromanage the building. And yeah, it got to a point like that with us. He instantly disliked me because he was a bit of a Christian himself. He disliked the fact that I drank. He disliked the fact that, oh, this was the big problem. They chained up the door to the outdoor patio where you could smoke. And sometimes I'm up late at night and I don't want to smoke in my room if it's not allowed. So I would use my keys to unlock the door. He'd like, oh, you're making too much noise. I was like, take the fucking chain off the door, you moron. He's like, oh, we can't do that. It's bad for security. So then I threw it in a public garbage dumpster and he fucking flipped. And I could just tell, and this is the problem. He's a cop, so he has a gun in his room. And I could tell we were gonna come to blows. And I was like, cop or no, I think I could take this guy, but he does have a gun, and that could be a problem. And that led to me leaving.
I remember this story, which is
Yeah,
why I don't live with anybody. Because I
yeah,
don't even want to go into my attempt to, rent the extra room in my house stories, because that would just depress me. So, anyway, moving on, guys. By the way, thanks everyone that's hanging out with us tonight. We're talking about 10 things that we hate about Brazil. If that's too much for your sensitive heart, then listen to the broadcast we did 2 weeks ago about 10 things that we love about Brazil. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, everyone that has already done that, because it really helps us. And give a like, press that little like button, even if you're already a subscriber, because it really helps get our video out there to a bunch of people. Um, you have freedom of speech everywhere except in the workplace. When someone asks you for your opinion at work, shut the fuck up.
yeah, I
Yes,
agree
this
with
is so
that.
true. And uh, I tend to keep my mouth shut, and well, I don't want to get into too many details. Employers want to suck your mind, drain your knowledge, and then cast you aside. And I know exactly what Ralphie's talking about. Let's not get into details. Not just cops, Brazilians in general. Oh, Beverly's on fire tonight. By the way, guys, we're gonna try an experiment in a couple weeks, Pete. And since we're getting a nice amount of live listeners, I'm gonna try to drop the link to get into the broadcast studio. So maybe we can have almost like a little call-in thing where we'll let somebody in for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
They'll say their piece, and then we'll kick them out. Um, I think it might work. I think it'll be kind of cool. We'll get like an open lines type of thing, and people can just talk about whatever's on their mind. So we'll see if we get a night that like the last couple, or even having a lot of live viewers. We can do it.
yeah.
And Beverly said she had to move every year. And I remember, yes, I remember Beverly's issues here in Brazil. And it's weird. And it's like, I lived with Beverly actually for about a month and a half. And like, with all due respect to Beverly, Beverly doesn't do shit, man. You know, she's an older woman, who just works, makes some really good food, and watches, True Blood and The Walking Dead. Like, she ain't having parties at her house. She ain't making noise. She's an older woman doing her thing. She just, like, people just move her about. And I lived with her for a month, so I'm terrible. I'm a really bad roommate because I need my quiet when it's time for quiet. I need my space when it's time for space. So I'm really shitty with like having anybody living with me. I lived with her for a month. I only moved out because I was sleeping on the quarter, from between her door and her living room, because she had like a one room apartment, but I was in between places, and yeah, I was like, how does that happen? But anyway, we're the nutty ones. Lack of culture. Number six, a global epidemic to which Brazil has succumbed. So, uh, you know, kind of how I feel about this is that there is a bit of a dumbing down of culture across the world, and you see it with popular movies, television shows. Although television it's going through its golden age. So maybe I would take that out now. But even music, like popular music, is just like droning music. Like they figured out the formula, what makes a hit, and it's like the same song over and over and over. Um, it's okay. We get kids that do speak in full sentences and blah blah blah, but Brazil, unfortunately, like in the rest of the world, yes, you can get your Handmaid's Tale, on TV, or you have a nice big chunk of stuff that can distract you from the brain dead stuff. But Brazil doesn't seem to have that, which is really upsetting. It's like what is being sold to the masses is all there is, unless you really, really, really dig. And you can find good stuff, as Pete will tell you. He's a fan of a lot of Brazilian rock bands and stuff, and me too. I mean, there's stuff you can find here that's amazing, but you got to dig. And it's sad because of what Brazilian culture was, especially uh, in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even up to the 90s, that, you have great works by these world-renowned musicians and actors. You got your Sonia Braga, your Milton Nascimento, your Bibi Ferreira, Tom Jobim, Elis Regina, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So it's something that I I feel a lack of down here, is just being able to have an intelligent conversation with a Brazilian. And I know how terrible that sounds, guys. But
Mm,
it's just a fact. Like Brazilians don't read that much. I mean, there's some studies on was it like, I forgot now. I don't want to give out a false number, but I think it's like up to 20 to 30% of people enrolled at USP, which is supposed to be like the top university in Brazil, are
it
functional
is.
illiterates. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so when you get um, when you get this, let me see here. I'm looking it up. So I get into these ruts, of like, I can't find somebody to just talk to about ideas, talk to about, you know, not talk about people, not talk about, what Bolsonaro's doing, because politics is
Right.
like the thing here. But it's boring. It's like it's circular conversations. Um, so it's yeah, it's just something that I feel that is a little bit upsetting for me, is the lack of culture compared to what Brazil has had and what Brazil has the potential to still have. It's not part of the pop culture. Um, Go ahead here, because I'm looking up the exact number
Yeah.
uh,
I think I saw
of the.
this more when I lived in a Republica because this is the good and bad thing about living in a Republica. The residency tends to be very short. I lived in the same place for like 5 years, which is horrible because
Mhm.
it was actually an underground parking garage that had a lot of cockroach problems. But they're like, you're going to meet all cross sections of Brazilians, most of them definitely poor. And they're like, they watch the novellas, they do like a lot of the stereotypical Brazilian things. But in my professional life, I'm working with like, you know, if not the 1%, at least the 5%. And from them, I don't get that feedback. Like from tonight, I was talking to a student. I asked her the question, who's a Brazilian who's famous now that wasn't famous a year ago? And I thought, if you asked me this question about Canada, I couldn't answer it. I have no fucking idea. But she said Juliet on Big Brother Brazil, and I googled her, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's like this chick, famous. She's a lawyer. She's a 31-year-old lawyer, and she was on Big Brother, and now she has like 30 million Instagram followers. And I asked her, like, what's the appeal of this? And she's like, I have no idea. I don't do that shit. But, this is the mentality of the country. They follow celebrity. But at the same time, to hear that, I think, well, that's the same everywhere. Like, how the fuck did Kim Kardashian become famous except for being an heiress and marrying Kanye? Like, I think that's normal. It's not Brazil specific.
Well, that's what I said. Like it isn't Brazil specific, but here, where's your plan B? Like in the U.S., you have your NPRs, you have your, Joe Rogan if you want. I mean, he's kind of a stoner, but he's got interesting people on. And if you go on YouTube, he's got 12, 14, 15 million views on some of those podcasts where the guy's talking about, you know, ancient history, Egyptian history, and stuff like that. So
Right,
there's a market for that. You get like, I know you're getting into God's side at the moment, you know, where he's a number one bestseller, and people know this guy, and he's a thinker, and he's putting stuff out there, whether it's right wing or left wing. There's so even if you're talking about social issues, politics, entertainment, um, you you have that. Whereas here you have this girl from Big Brother Brazil. Yes, we have the
right.
Kardashians too, but we also have the Kardashians. Wait, am I mixing them up? The Kardashians. See, I'm a Trekkie. Kardashians is from Star Trek, but
Yes,
we do
yes,
have
I
the
know.
Kardashians from Star Trek. So we have Star Trek. We have this other thing that you can do, which isn't watch Big Brother. And here in Brazil, it's like you're watching Big Brother or you're watching soccer. And it's not to say it's everybody. Obviously, guys, it's not everybody. There are some YouTubers that I watch that they say some interesting stuff sometimes, but I think it comes from fundamental lack of reading skills and bad schools. And look who's on, my friend João, who I haven't seen in a while, man. I gotta hang out with John. I haven't seen him in at least 3 or 4 years. Actually, John would be a great person to have on to talk about these hikes that he takes. I've been on two of them, like 4 day hikes, 5 days, six. Like he's a walker. Um, and actually, one of the first people I ever met in Brazil is João. So really nice guy. Him and Beverly, I think, are the first two people that I befriended down here in Brazil. Real nice guy, João Carlos Noronha, also known as John. And he understands very well what we're talking about. He grew up here his whole life, and he knows exactly what we mean when we say these things. It's not out of hatred for the country, though we're saying things we hate. They're just things that are frustrating. And I think what makes them frustrating is that like you meet people. I'm sure you do, Pete. Like you have those students of yours that are like, wow, this is like an hour of my day that is really enlightening because this person is well read, they're interesting, they want to
Hmm.
talk about ideas. And you meet some people like this, and and not even somebody that's learning English. Obviously they probably had a better education, but even people that aren't coming from that more privileged background, who are interesting, who can talk about ideas, but it's like so far and few between. Whereas once I kind of extricated myself from just having a circle of Brazilian friends and moved more into the expat community, it's like, you know, uh, fishing, like when you fish in those little in the fairs, you put your thing in there and
Yeah.
you fish, and like I can find anybody to have an interesting conversation with. It's not like that much of a struggle to just meet
No, it was
somebody
not.
and
And
all of us.
actually, I'm going to put that question out there. I am going to put an open post out to Brazilian friends, like who are like the great Brazilian thinkers, who are the people that say things that you can relate to. Because I mean, we have an abundance of them in North America, and I'm sure they're out there. We just haven't heard of them.
I'll put an asterisk on that, Pete. Ask them current and not
Yeah.
politically, not politics, because
Yes.
there are a few of these
Yeah.
guys who are influencers right now, like Felipe Neto, Caio Coppola, Constantino. Like I know these guys because I try to keep up with Brazilian politics. So I listen to some of these guys. Some of it is a lot of it is actually BS, but okay, I'll listen just to see what they're talking about. But just like who ask who's a current Brazilian thinker. There's a few that like one guy that I know is Ponji. I really like him. He's a philosopher. And actually, they had like a philosophers roundtable with him and like these two other guys. Real interesting dudes. And I like that it was a philosophers roundtable, and they're all coming from different, very different views of how society should run. Um, but yeah, ask them that because you're gonna get answers if you just ask in general, but it's gonna be guys that are dead, like from the 1950s,
Right.
1960s. Uh, what's that? Linspector, the great Brazilian writer Linspector, people like that, which is like the Brazilian Virginia Woolf, let's say, real great writer. Um, Jorge Amado, wonderful writer, but
Yeah.
he's long gone. Who's doing it today? Who's that person like a Jordan Peterson in Brazil or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and science is not highly valued in Brazil. I mean, I think part of it is the Catholicism, but I had this one student when he was going to university. He originally studied astronomy, like he wanted to be a fucking rocket scientist, and then he got like halfway through his second year in university, and he's like, "Wait a minute, what are my employment opportunities in Brazil?" Being an astronomist, like Brazil has like no space program, like it would be a waste of time. So he switched his major to economics, and now he's really successful and shit. Super successful, actually. But yeah, he wanted to be a scientist, but there was no market for it.
Yes. Well, science in general, as you say. Actually, I'm teaching somebody right now whose plan is to move to the U.S. because he's a geneticist, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot now, but he's like, "There's
Okay.
no work
Yeah.
for me here."
Yeah.
And he's the guy that I sent you. He's got that heavy metal band. I posted that on Facebook. Real cool guy.
Yeah. 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 No, it was decent.
Yeah, it was decent. I dug it. Guru Indiano says the conversations do feel empty with people here. That's my thing. It just feels empty. It's not that they're bad conversations, but I know 9 out of 10 times I'm not gonna go home and think about what somebody said, which is different than sometimes I think about what Pete says on some stupid Facebook post about farts or something. Something philosophical will
You're
come
the one
out
who
of that.
posts about farts, man.
I know, but somebody usually comments in the thread, and it's like, but something will come out of it. Like we have our friend Craig, who's always bringing up some interesting thoughts. Like you guys were going back and forth the other day about Joe Rogan. Speaking of which, it was a really great
Yeah.
conversation, and I chimed
Yeah,
in
and it
with,
was civil and
it
respectful
was super
too.
civil, and it's yeah, it's just something that I feel is missing here. No, I love Brazil. Of course, Beverly love Brazil. But Guru Indiano here, he says, but their conversation, as far, by the way, for those that don't know, listen to that interview we had with him.
Yes.
Really great one. But there are conversations which is a breath of air for me compared to Sweden. Basically, I love the simple people. I love them too, guys. So when I say this, please
Yes.
don't
Yes.
take it the wrong way. It's just it's something that's missing. It's something that's missing here, and I tried. I mean, when I came to Brazil, I did the correct expat thing, which is I want to dig into this culture, especially since technically this is my culture. I want to find out about my own country. I want to go to
Right.
the sambas and the pagodes, and after 3 years, 4 years of it, I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like I need to meet other Americans. I need to meet people that are thinking how I think a little bit. I tried the Marcel Proust questionnaire, later the Actor Studio, Bernard Pivot. The typical answer was, I don't know. I never thought about that. Oh, I like the Actor
Yeah,
Studio one.
that's a good reference. That's a good
I
reference.
never did the Proust questionnaire. I gotta look that one up. But I know the Actor Studio one with what's his name? James Lipton used to do that at the end of the
Yes,
show.
James Lipton.
Oh, that was
James
such a
Lipton.
cool little show. Two great Brazilian
Yes,
singers are Pablo Vittar and Anita. Hey, hey, I love Pablo
yeah.
Vittar. He
And I
just
love
did a little
Anita.
live,
Her
and he
music
loves
sucks,
Anita.
but I
There you
did
go.
actually see her in concert.
They make you think about other things, like, how far up that. Ooh, I don't want to say that. I don't want to lose our audience. Um, invent, imagine, do what you do best. Lie, pretend. Wow, Ralphie's just like he goes for the jugular, man.
He's on
Uh,
fire. We got to have this guy
seven.
as a guest.
Oh, he's great. I've been promising that for a while. Ralphie's great. No bullshit type guy from New York. Racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. If it's bad, Brazil's got it in abundance.
Yes.
So well, I wrote this in 2016, guys. Things have changed like a millimeter. It's like a little bit better now. I mean, as far as even today, I was having lunch and I saw this black girl on TV doing something or other. And today I opened up my Bradesco app and there's a little black kid and a dad. I was like, okay, but
No.
it does. But 2016, uh, I had to say it. It doesn't take long to notice that black people are rarely shown on TV unless they're maids or butlers or kicking a ball or living in the favela or dancing during carnival or being shot by the police. So they're black here still very stereotyped, very much. Okay, blacks are over there, whites are over here as far as living arrangements go. Also, uh, although you can find out where they live to a certain guest that didn't know where the black people lived. Just ask your maid; she'll tell you. Um, so joining the blacks into a fine little, they like to put them in a little stereotype peg, are women who are mostly objectified or portrayed using their sex appeal and their congeniality instead of their brains. And I have a lot of female students for whatever reason. That's just how the cookie crumbled for me. Like 90% of my students are women. They tend to like me more than the male students. Um, and they tell me, like, sometimes going into a board meeting, I needed to take my male coworker with me because they wouldn't let me talk. This is 10 years ago. So there's a lot of that, a lot of, sexual assault down here, women getting beat up and all this other shit. Um, and then we got the gays. They're treated well as long as they can entertain and don't mind toning their gay down in everyday life. The indigenous folks are pretty much forgotten unless they're being blamed for like destroying the Amazon or something. Um, so Brazil loves to portray itself as this happy multicultural family, but they're actually
Mhm.
quite divisive. Um, and there is a camaraderie, among people of all sexes, races, and whatever else makes up the melting pot, but it's done at a polite distance. And check our first, point number two, point number three, the falseness and the inability to say no.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with that. If it's just like if it's like meeting somebody at the bar, changing numbers after a wonderful night of beers, conversations, but never hearing from that person again. People here are generally not generally interested in each other. So at the end of the workday, each group goes to their assigned spots and prepare to tolerate each other again for the next day. Um, so yeah, it's for me it's kind of sad because Brazil's so unique with the amount of mixing that happens here, but
Yeah.
um, everything is in its place, and when you see down down the list, who has less money, who has the worst schools, who has the worst hospitals, who lives in the worst place? It'd be people of color, gays,
Yeah.
who have. If you just Google, I had Googled here before we came on. You don't even need to open the sites, but I just put Brazil killing of gays. Violent deaths of LGBT people in Brazil hit all-time high. This is
There's
from
a really
2018.
public one at the Barafunda subway station a few years ago. I think it
Oh
happened
God.
on like Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. But yeah, these two dudes just like beat a gay dude to death because they saw him kissing a guy.
Yeah, this is true. At least 420 Brazilians died as victims of LGBT phobia in 2019. Homicide of lesbians and gays from the Sayaslo.br from 2020. Surging violence 2020. So it's crazy, and it's weird because again, it shows like this country. I always like to say it's a bipolar country because Brazil's got the largest gay parade on planet Earth. Actually,
Yes, and they
probably the
also, I think they have the second largest trans population per capita. The
I can
largest being
imagine.
Thailand, of course.
Yeah, I can imagine. But on the same, other side of that coin is that Brazil's also got the biggest March for Jesus on the planet too. So you get this country that's
Right,
extremely conservative, extremely progressive at the same time, where oh, we don't mind if you're gay, but you just have to be kind of like a gay that we can deal with, a lesbian we can deal with, and it's like and we have the fortune, Pete, of living in São Paulo, which is a very metropolitan city. But once you get out of
yeah,
like even where I live in Butantã, I wouldn't feel as comfortable walking around holding hands with somebody, depending on the
right,
time of day. And I'm just like 30 minutes out of the central area of the city, so
right.
it's very much you can be what you want to be, but like you gotta check the little squares, and it goes the same with women and the same with blacks. It's like, okay, if you're playing soccer, if you're dancing at carnival, we don't mind. A quick story before I'll let you comment and see what your thoughts are. But there was this girl Maju, who was she was a weather girl. This girl right here. She was a weather
Oh,
girl on Global. Global never had a black anchor before, and this was the weather girl. And she got a bunch of racist comments, in her during her weather
yeah,
reports. Cause like who does that? Like who watches the weather just to like be
yes.
like, why is this nigga telling me if it's gonna be hot today? Like who does that? But anyway, calling her a monkey and this and this. So Global, they did the right thing, which is instead of getting rid of her, obviously they wouldn't get rid of her or even, you know, uh, responding to the comments, they made her an anchor. And now she's like one of the highest rated anchors on Global. And but yes, this is like the Brazil we live in. This happened, oh, I can't remember now, maybe 4 years ago. So every time I see her on TV, I mean, I don't like to watch global or Brazilian TV at all, but I'm like, woohoo, look at that beautiful black woman giving the news, giving us news. But it's still an anomaly. It's still something you don't see in 2021 in a country that's 50% not white. That's why I like the term people of color
Yeah,
because it's mixed race, it's real Afro black, it's people kind of mix Japanese with black and this and that and the
yeah.
third,
Well,
but it's definitely
you
not
can be
lily
mixed
white.
race and still be white though, because
Well, it
most of
depends on
Brazil
what you're
is.
mixing, what race you're mixing with. All I'm saying it's not like America lily white. Blacks only make up what 10% of the U.S. population, 15%. Because a lot of people,
Yeah, but
especially Brazilians,
I'm lily
you
white
could
and I'm mixed race.
you are mixed race, but then you could go ahead, do your Elizabeth Warren imitation. Go for it, you know. But
Oh, don't- that's
I'm saying
infuriating.
to the like because yes, everybody's been mixed with something at some point. Even like Bob Marley had some white in him. I think his other or somebody
Yeah,
was white. So
Hendrix as
you know
well.
Hendrix and Barack Obama. But at the end of the day, people are going to judge you by you're walking down the street, what you look like. You look like a white boy, you look like a black dude, you look like a Latino. So I tend to not to get into the whole semantics of mix with this, mix with that. No. Do you look like a black dude? Yes, then you're probably going to be treated like a black dude. Do you look like a white guy? Yes, you're probably going to be treated like a white guy. And so
Right.
50% of the Brazilian population do not identify as what to our eyes would be a white person. So to have that much of the population not identify that way and yet be represented so little, it's why some black people in Brazil that I talk to, they're amazed when they find out. that blacks only make up like 10% of the population. It's like Chris Rock says that in one of his stand-ups. Like blacks are in like 5 cities, like Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York. Like nobody lives in the middle. Like there are no black people in Minnesota except for Prince. You know? Like that's it.
Yeah.
So it's infuriating when you see that. There have been gradual, upward movements for gays, for women, for people of color, black folks, but it's slow as molasses, man. Slow as molasses.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess my thoughts on this would be, first of all, your comments on television are 100% on point, because when I was living in the Republica, we would like gather around and watch the novellas. And one really popular one was Otro Lado Paradiso, which means the other side of paradise. I didn't understand most of it. It was trash, but I had a really hot roommate and she liked watching it. She was a basketball player at USP actually. So yeah, she was foxy. So I would just watch it with her to keep her company. And yeah, it was set in Bahia, which is the blackest state in all of Brazil. And the
And there's the
entire
cast.
cast was white.
Well,
Yes,
except for this
yes,
little girl in the
exactly.
corner.
Yes, but she probably played a maid. So yes, the lack of representation on television is palpable and obvious. But the other thing I'd have to say is that nobody here is 100% anything.
Yes.
Like even the white supremacists, like they're like, these blacks, these Latinos, these Indians, which we don't have here in Sao Paulo, by the way, because all the Indians are up north. All the ones down here got killed a long time ago. Um,
Pete, Pete,
the
Pete.
Yes,
Before you go on, I just want to give a little added note to your The Other Side of Paradise, because they had this other novella called Paraisopolis, which is the biggest ghetto in probably in Brazil, but definitely in
yes,
Sao
yes,
Paulo.
I know. Yes,
And
I'm
this is the
familiar with
cast. This
Parazopolis.
this is this is the cast to Paraisopolis.
Oh my God, it's like 90210.
Yes, it's like, how does that happen? But anyway, just a little aside there. But go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I need to check that out actually, because that girl I was dating, she lived next to Parazopolis. She lived in a more gentrified part of what's this is in Villa Sonia, isn't it?
Villa Sonia. Well, Villa Sonia is like right down the street from me. Yeah, it's on the way
Yeah,
though to
yeah,
Paraisópolis. It's a big neighborhood.
yeah,
But go
yeah.
ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
she sent me a message saying it was burning to the ground. But okay, I need to check this out. Anyways, yes, the problem. I mean, racism in itself is just fucking idiotic. But the problem with racism in Brazil is like nobody's blood is 100% one thing. Like you may look white as fuck, but chances are like there's a billion other things going on in there. I had this roommate. His name was Ricardo, and he was a cook. He was a good cook, nice guy, Italian looking, but he had a real problem with black people. And yeah, that was a bit of a problem. Like it's one of those subtle racism things at first that you don't notice, but it would constantly work itself into conversations. And I'd be like, motherfucker, like, who do you think you are? Do you think you like actually descended from I'm hard pressed to think of like the white Donald Trump. Do you think you're descended from Donald Trump? Like you're not. Like you're a mixed race person too. You're not a white person. Like everyone here is mixed. I'm mixed. Like there's no reason for you to have these attitudes.
I got you. That reminds me of that scene in in no, oh, I can't find it now, but there's some Nazis in Brazil's white supremacists who are not very white looking. Um, but what was I gonna ask? Is say that movie Bacurau. Remember,
Oh
there was that
yeah, yeah,
really great
yeah,
scene where they're like, um, "Oh, we're white, right?" It was because it was this Brazilian couple that were there helping these guys hunt Brazilians. It was almost like the most dangerous game, like set in Brazil.
yeah. Wasn't that
And
Klaus Kinski who was responsible for that? Who's the German actor? The German
oh,
actor
I
was
forgot.
like,
Yes, yes. But the scene at the table was so telling because this couple that looked as if they were, they could pass for white in Brazil said, they're not like us, these people that you're hunting. And they're like,
yeah, yeah,
"Really?
yeah,
You
yeah,
think you're white? Look at his nose." And then they start picking these two quote unquote white Brazilians apart. Like, seriously? You think that you're two white folks, and it's like you're far from. So it's so true what Pete's saying about all the mixing here. That's why it makes it even more infuriating down here because in America, yes, of course, there was mixing in America, but definitely not as much as down here. To the point where it was illegal to get, interracial marriage was only legal what, in the 1960 something with the Loving case. So America is way more segregated by color lines, and it's very clear that this is a black person, that's a white person, and we don't necessarily have to get along. But Brazil's like a mix of a bunch of this, that, and the third. And when you see some folks that come out as racist, you're like, dude, like they would beat you up, like in Tennessee,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, and not trying to paint all of Tennessee in a bad light, but you get what I'm saying. Um, so yes, this is a frustrating side to Brazil, because on the one side,
Yeah, Beverly
women have a
says if you're
lot of
three
power.
percent black, then you are black. Um, yeah, yeah. Actually, one thing I want to say about this because
That's the
I've
American
mentioned this.
law.
Yeah, I've mentioned this on every podcast, but anytime we bring up racism in Brazil, I feel like repeating this. I had a married couple who were students. They were both 50-50, 50% black, 50% white. The husband identified as white, which he so clearly was not, and his wife identified as black. They had the exact same skin tone, but their identity was based mostly on their family relationships.
Mm, yes. No, there's a different way to that blacks in Brazil deal with, their heritage or whatever. Like it's not in the same way as Americans do at all. Um, Adiv, nice to have you on, sir. He said, I got so excited when I heard Anita on US radio with her crossover single. I have to admit, what you're saying is relatable to me with my Mexican family sometimes. Totally get it on both sides. Nice of you to comment, Adiv, and let us know where in Mexico you are. Nice to have you on. We're moving right along, guys. We're almost done this list here because it is getting late, too. And
Mhm.
we both got to work tomorrow. And
Yeah,
speaking of why we need to work, it's because everything's very expensive in Brazil. So prices, when
yeah.
George Harrison wrote Taxman, he could never have imagined Brazil. Um, so maybe, his song would have been While My Guitar Gently Weeps in the melody of Taxman. So there's extremely high taxes on everything in Brazil. So everything's more expensive to cover these charges. If you're buying
And
international products,
import fees.
yeah, international, forget about it. You're met with even higher taxes because of the protectionist government tries to push national brands. So there's no real way around this. Brazil is just gonna suck you dry with the way the exchange rate is now. Like I was just at extra because I had my little hot pot died tonight, so
I
I had to
saw
buy a new
that.
one.
Yeah.
I know it lasted so long though. I recommend guys buy Mondial, Mondial. This little hot pot. That thing is like a a little beast, man. I've had it. I had it for maybe 6 years, and it was really on its, last legs there. Literally on its last legs, because I couldn't even stand it up straight. Like the one leg from the bottom of it had fallen off. But today it just said goodbye. So I went to buy a new one, and I was just waiting for the guy to get the shit and looking at the price for the computers, like simple laptops, 4,000. Like the cheapest I saw was like 3,000 reais. Like 2 years
Yeah.
ago when I bought this one was like, what was did I pay,
I
like
can fly to Canada
2,000,
for that shit, man.
1,800? Yeah. So super expensive right now to buy electronics. Electronics in general are expensive, but now even more. Not only due to import taxes because exchange rate is making it really impossible, and it really has to do with the way the Brazilian government is run. It's a protectionist government. One of the many qualms
That's
against
not
Bolsonaro is that
anymore. It's not anymore.
it still is, dude. Come on, it still is. Because one of the promises of Bolsonaro was that he was going to open up the economy a little bit more,
Right.
privatize a little bit more. He's really done
Yeah, but COVID
nothing.
kind of fucked that though.
Yeah, but he
And
had like
I
a
will tell
year.
you,
He had like a year.
well, okay. I told you this story when we were out a couple weeks ago, but just for our listeners, this same student, the half black guy who identifies as white, he was supposed to spearhead the IPO on Caixa, which is one of the big banks here. They were going to privatize 20% of their assets. And it was going to be the largest IPO in Brazilian history. And they sent him to New York to do this. But then 3 days before his flight was supposed to leave, yeah, COVID just blew up, and they're like, no, that's not happening.
No, I got you. No, COVID fucked up the world, but Bolsonaro was in power for about a year or so before any of this COVID stuff happened. And he had more than enough time to, I mean, some of it he has to pass through Congress in order to privatize, but he could have opened up the economy. You got this guy there, this Gedges dude, who's always saying, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna do this soon. You're gonna see some changes soon. We're gonna do this," and nothing, nothing. Unemployment's up. It's just a big mess down here. But in any case, I don't want to talk about Bolsonaro. I just want to say, in general, though, Brazil's not the most free market friendly country on planet Earth. Let's just put it that way.
No, it's a rigged
You
game.
want to open up a business down here, taxes, 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 taxes on this. You want to buy a foreign product, good luck. If you like traveling back and forth between your home country, if it's first world, bring stuff back. You're gonna make a lot of money. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that on the air, but
Yeah, well, if they catch you, you're gonna get fucking what do they call it? Duty. You're gonna get duty
here we
tax
go.
out
Look,
the
look, look,
window.
look, look. Here we go. Here we go. We got some people saying here. Fight sports worldwide. Man, Brazil has a term for every tone of skin color, and they get offended about it if you list them one tone darker. Okay. Uh, or lighter, actually, depending on the situation. I don't like this whole pardo. Pardo for me, pardo is like it's not a color. It's I don't even know what pardo means. I always forget what pardo means, but it's like the color of uh, it's between white, black, yellow, and indigenous. It's like a non-color. So when
Okay,
folks, yeah, it's like it's weird. So Pardo is a big thing here. So I remember one time I had to go get a police report filed, and the lady was like, "What's your race?" So first of all, I didn't even want to say because in the U.S. I always put other. And then she's like, "Oh,
right.
you're Pardo." The minute she said Pardo, I was like, "No, black. Put negro." I was like, "What the fuck is Pardo?" And I wasn't flying with that. And as people have been more comfortable with saying I'm black, I'm proud to be black in Brazil. It's kind of the opposite sometimes. People will get offended if you call them like a lighter. color than they are, they're kind of proud to say, "Yeah, I'm a dark skinned person. It's not a problem," uh, because they're the last to get accepted in society. It's like the whole house nigger, slave nigger mentality. You know, like
Right.
the ones out in the field were the dark ones. The ones in the house were the ones that were nicer looking, also AKA lighter skin. So
Kind,
that's the
female, and
funniest.
rapeable.
Yes, yes. So there's a little bit of that. There's a lot of that in Brazil. The phonies kill me. I love black people just as long as they don't live with me, or black people are great. I think everyone should own one. Horrible mentality. In fact, here in Brazil, they had a slave. Did you ever hear about this? They had like a slave reenactment that happened here. Uh, wait. Let me see if I can find this in like 2 seconds. There it is. Oh no, this is the slice of. I'll find it in a second. But guys, there was like this thing where you know how in the U.S. can go to like the Gettysburg reenactment, or you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go to
yeah.
like Revolutionary War reenactment, but they don't actually have black people there dressed as slaves. But in this Brazilian reenactment of colonial times, they actually had black people there serving and like people. I'm like, what is wrong with this country? But yes, this is the stuff that happens here. Uh, we got fight sports. He lowered the taxes on guitars and skateboards though from 20% to 2%. That maybe that's why I was able to buy
Oh,
my
good.
skateboard my guitar so cheap. Brazilians bend over backwards to claim any other label besides black. It doesn't really matter what they look like, you or to you or me. Brazilians, oh, the same thing twice here. Corruption is endemic. Crime pays. Steal with impunity. Don't live near me. Yes, that is a mentality here. It's like it's okay for you to be who you want. Just don't come too close to me with that shit. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, everything's expensive in Brazil. If you can, in fact, hopefully, Watif, our friend Watif, will be back on the air soon. Go to his channel, listen to his stuff. He's gonna try to hook you up with how to live in Brazil without dealing with reais. If you got to deal with reais, listen to us because we're the ones that live with reais, and we can tell you what
Yeah.
life's like from that side. Number 9. Speaking of government, it's huge. Everywhere you go, it's like Big Brother's watching. There's
Mm.
513 congressmen, 81 senators, 35 political parties, and a slew of micromanaging laws to go with them. Some people say, hey, it's good for the democracy, to have 35 political parties. But the reality is it's fake because these parties don't really have any power. It all kind of centralizes. In the end, it becomes just like the US or England, Tories and Labor, Republicans and Democrats, because these little parties, they can never win the big elections. So they just kind of get sucked up into either the PT party, the PT, no,
I
PTSD is what
wouldn't.
I feel sometimes. PSDB party and offshoots of them. Go
I
ahead.
wouldn't say that's true because Bolsonaro's party is very small, and that's his biggest problem. He's like a popular personality, but his party is not popular at all. So he wields no influence in the lower house.
Yeah, but guess what he did? That's the thing. It's like he promised that yes, I'm gonna be this vanguard. I'm gonna be on my own. He wanted to make this party that was after like a bullet, like the 51 party or something. 51 I don't know calibers of guns, but anyway,
Yeah, that sounds like a Bolsonaro thing. It would have to do
yes.
something with guns.
Um, but he claimed from the beginning, I'm not gonna unite with the Centrão. The Centrão is these guys are kind of in the middle, and they'll go like with anybody wherever the money's flowing in. That's exactly what he's done because
Right.
you can't get anything done unless you join one of the big parties. So in the end of the day, it seems like when I got to Brazil, like I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like there's like 100 political parties. Like I wish the U.S. were more
Yeah.
like this, but it's
Geraldo
not really. It's
Wolverine.
like who? Oh yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Guys, one of the best things, well, best and worst things about Brazil is during the election season, you get like a million political ads, especially for local candidates who have like $100 budgets to make these really crappy political ads.
Yes.
And yeah, the
Yes.
Wolverine guy. And then remember the one guy who shot lasers from his eyes? I think
Yes.
even Oliver North, not Oliver North, no, not Jamie Oliver either. There was this guy on HBO that had a show, Oliver something.
No,
And
no, John Oliver.
John Oliver,
Uh,
yes.
yeah,
And he even talked about this guy, like he would shoot lasers. He was like the privatizing guy. He would fly around like Superman, and he had the
yeah.
olhar privatizador. He would have the privatizing glance, and he would like shoot lasers, and everything would get privatized. I'm like, what the hell? Uh, but yes, the thing here, guys, when I came to Brazil, I was like, I had never felt government so much in my day to day life. Again, much of it due to taxes, but a lot of it due to um, the politicians here feel like a gang. And it's like when they make a decision for something to happen a certain way, like you feel it almost immediately. Um,
Hmm.
Whereas in the US, I mean, local government, sure, you do kind of feel the changes, but when it gets to the national level, it does obviously affect, but you can feel like you can just kind of carry on with your life. And in Brazil, I just was like, I feel the weight of this motherfucking government on my back, just making my life difficult with their crazy laws and, whatever it is that they're up to. So I don't know how you feel if you escape the government here in Brazil, Pete. Real quick, guys, just want to show you
No, go
this
ahead.
here. But tourists visit plantation in Brazil and are served by black slaves. So that's this. Look at that.
Well, that's like
If you'd like to be
Westworld,
served by
isn't
a
it?
black person dressed as a slave, you can visit the Santa less than 70 miles in the center from the center of Rio.
Oh, nice. I hope they're at least paid
And
well for
the
it.
black
'Cause-
slaves there. Tourists go for a stroll with the slaves. Like why? Like who thought that this was a good idea? Because it
well,
took a lot of planning. So it's not even who thought, like who in the plural, like not even who won. But yes, this is Brazil in a nutshell. But go ahead, Pete.
no, no, just commenting on that link. I think that at least they're getting paid for it. It's not like the slaves got paid anything.
Oh, Pete, that's a terrible thing to say.
Well, I mean, fuck. Obviously, like it's a job, right? Like I hope they're getting paid well.
It's a job. Oh, they can have a better job. And who knows? You never know how deep this reenactment go. Maybe it's all voluntary. Um, what's the real reason behind why all the banks are pushing you to picks? I don't know. Tell us, Ralphie. Save that for when you're on. The best fact: I am not allowed to vote. How many constitutions? How many? Yes, there's that too. There's like a million Brazilian constitutions. It's yeah, government, 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 government. Big government with a lot of mixing and meddling with your day to day life. And then finally, to close it off, as they say in Brazil, with chave de ouro, with the golden key. Self serving attitude. It's all about family, our family. Okay. And this is one that I put last, but infuriates me the most on a day to day level, especially when Brazilians talk about you selfish Americans, you only think about yourself, you just want to run the world, and that, this, and the third. And guess what? Look up the statistics to what country on planet Earth donates the most, volunteers the most, gives the
Yes.
most to people in need, and you may be surprised what country that is.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
think
it's not
Pearl
Brazil.
Jam is the
So
biggest charitable contribution to Brazil, actually.
Pearl Jam
Yeah, yeah. You know when
band?
they had that big, yeah, yeah, they had that big mudslide. Eddie Vedder
Oh
donated like
yes,
millions of dollars to help with the recovery of that. And
and
it's
there was
like, did
another one with
Brazil?
like. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, like, it's not like Brazilians donated anything. It's like that's terrible, but I don't live
Oh,
there,
and
so
I think
not
there
my
was something with
problem.
hearing aids too. Like,
Yeah.
wasn't it Johnny Depp that donated hearing aids or something?
Yeah, I know Johnny Depp made a massive charitable contribution to Brazil, but yeah, I don't remember what it
So,
was.
so, but dude, this one infuriates me. It's very difficult to get me pissed off, like on a personal level, but this one does because I grew up in the U.S. Obviously, I did a lot of volunteer work. Still try to help motherfuckers out when I can. I don't have to like broadcast when I do my shit. And we're taught from a very early age in America that yes, you need to help others. Like that's kind of like the first thing that you learn is like try to help other people, especially if you have some. And when a Brazilian who barely does anything charitable,
Yeah,
like you see all these big stars, they barely do any. They'll do like a free concert, but then they'll charge like 200,000 from like the venue to play. It's like the hypocrisy of them not truly being a charitable nation and helping others, and then telling me that I'm a selfish person just infuriates the shit out of me to the point where I'm like, I try to think, like I just said a little while back, when I was in between homes, I needed a place to stay. Who helped me out? Beverly. Like I slept on her
yeah.
floor, but it was a place to stay. I
And you
can't
made
think.
me
Well,
the
I can
same
think.
offer when I first moved to Sao Paulo as well.
I did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was moving to Sao Paulo from Jundiaí.
Good for me. Good for me.
Yeah, exactly. Good
Uh,
for you.
I don't remember, but if I did, I'm sure I did. Cause I'm like that. Like I don't give a shit. Like if I see it within my means, if I can do something, yeah, I'll do it. Um, but I'm trying to think of how many Brazilians. Like I know of a few. I can count a couple on one hand, who I think I'm pretty sure. That if I were homeless tomorrow, I could sleep on their couch. I know one for certain um, because I took care of her son in my house, for the longest time. But they moved to Paraná now. They're almost in Uruguay. Um, but I knew her definitely. I could crash on her couch. Other than that, I don't know. Like I would not trust to have somebody from this country as like the as my lifeline, like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
No, no, no.
Shit hit the
But
fan. I know I can count
but
on this person to help me out.
there is a reason for this lack of charitability, and it is
There
something that
is.
I'm shocked that hasn't come up on your list of worst things about Brazil, and that is the corruption. Brazilian people don't have a lot of faith in charity because they think it is going to be misappropriated.
I agree with you 100%. And actually, I might have written this before a friend of mine sent me this really nice video essay by, I think it's Paulo Fernandes. He's a Brazilian journalist. And he made this really great, it's like a minute or 2 minutes long video essay about corruption. And what does he say? What do Brazilians complain the most about? Corruption. But then he
Yeah,
made this point. Guess do politicians grow on trees or they fall out of the sky? Like you're voting these people in. So on some level you got to look at yourself and see if you're not corrupt too. Whether it's that extra 10 reais that you give to the bar owner to let you stay after hours, whether it's the money that you're paying off some cops to let your bar stay open, like a certain bar near my house, uh, at which COVID never hit. Like there was never a pandemic at this bar, and good for them, whatever. No,
Yeah.
um, so it's like on a day to day level, corruption is there, and and like Pete said, there's no faith in charitableness, and this goes back to the root cause of it. My theory, of course, correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that why are Brazilians corrupt on, from the smallest to the biggest level? Because this country, was, when the Portuguese came here, not to colonize it like other places around the world, for better or worse, but the people went there to say, let's make a home here. Here, it's let's take the gold and go.
Yeah. Yep.
So people from day one here have just been trying to make it to the next day, make it to the next month. And there's so much instability that I don't blame Brazilians for being like that. Like I understand it because if I had grown
Yeah.
up here, I can't say I would be any different. I'd be like, man, I got to make sure I get that next paycheck some way, somehow, because I don't know if my president's going to be impeached next month or not. I don't know if the economy is going to crumble next week or not. I don't know if there's going to be a military junta next week or not. So I'm not thinking about 10 years ahead. I'm thinking about 10 days ahead, see what I can get in those 10 days. So it's not a way to excuse any of this, but I can kind of get it. Like, it's a
No,
different reality.
Brazil is, I think, the least charitable nation on the planet in terms of like your top 20 economies. I mean, Brazil's in the top 10 economies, just not a lot of people seeing the benefits of that. But in terms of those 20 countries, Brazil is the least charitable. They're the last people to ask for fucking money because they're like, yeah, it's not going to the place it should be. And it's funny too, because if you look back at the history of charity, Live Aid is a perfect example. Bob Geldof, what a hero. This guy, he put together this big concert to raise money for starving children in Ethiopia. And what happened was the African governments just took all those money and put it in their pockets. It didn't do anything. And I think
Mm.
Brazilian people feel pretty much the same way. Like, if I donate my money, like, who the fuck is it going to help? I need this money more.
Exactly. And that's why, I mean, this last one is upsetting to me, but it's probably the one that I get the most because why wouldn't you be this way? And here we go. I got a bunch of ads here, but okay. So the least charitable country on planet Earth is China. No surprise there. And then overall score 16. And then Brazil fares a little bit better at 28, not by much, ahead of Mexico and Argentina, but behind Pakistan. France, not very charitable, but then what do you know? United States, number one with 58 score.
I am not surprised by
So
that.
the United States has been the number one country on the WGI report for the last 10 years. Of those surveyed, 72 reported helping a stranger, 61% reported donating to a charity, and 42% reported having volunteered their time to an organization. I teach kids down here in an American high school program, and when I tell them how important it is to volunteer and how universities actually look at that, and employers will look at that on your resume. They're like, what? And so I got a couple of them to actually go out and do some volunteer work. Uh, Maybe some of them donate to charity because it's tax refundable. But as far as being out there helping strangers and stuff, it's funny, Pete, that the ones that I do see doing that are people of lower income.
Right.
which are not the people that should be on the front lines doing this. I mean, good for them, but it's like these folks with a lot of cash. It would be great to see some folks from Morumbi and from Jardins out on the street at night, you know, in big groups, feeding the homeless, because there are groups like that. So we're not trying to say Brazilians are totally anti helping anybody. If you walk down Praça da Sé and any of these kind of sketchy neighborhoods at 1 a.m.,
Yeah,
they got
they got
food
the
lines.
mobile van that comes around and
Yeah, so
feeds the
these
homeless.
OGs, as they call them, the NGOs do exist, but again, it's like middle to lower class people who are doing this, and it's like, come on, you know.
Well, they probably have
So,
more time. If you're rich, actually, the best thing to do is just donate money. Because I don't know about you, I do not have time to actually volunteer to feed the homeless. But,
oh,
I'm willing.
Pete, no, you do bring up a good a good point because I don't have as much time to do as much volunteer work in Brazil as I did in the U.S. because it's a hustle down here. But I do find time to do some things. I've gone to clown college, so I'm a certified clown. So even if I can, go to hospitals and low income families and do stuff like that, there's things you can do. That's all I'm
Right.
saying. And even just the self serving. Let's go beyond charitable donations. Just hey, you know, can I borrow 10 reais? I'll pay you back tomorrow, type things. Do you think a Brazilian's going to believe that you're going to pay them back tomorrow? Because they know they're not going to pay you back if you ask them for money. So it's
Right.
like, I don't even think about borrowing money. And sorry if this, at the end of this podcast, it's sounding like a complete hate fest, but it's just the one thing that irks me really, really bad about mainly because, like I said, if Brazilians didn't throw it in my face, the minute that they find out that I'm from America, they just try to paint this. They all think we're Donald Trump, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like, no, that's one man. Even Donald Trump probably donated a bunch of money to a bunch of shit, you know?
Oh,
Um,
he's donated tons. Tax
yes,
deductions.
yes, yes. So it's like we're not all one dude that you saw on TV that you didn't like, you know. And there, it, again, it's the idea that you don't know what the future is, so you don't invest in it like Americans or British or possibly even Canadians do, where it's like we want to construct something today, whether it's a university, whether it's a foundation for indigenous people, whether it's a place for women to be able to go to and get a science education, get more women in STEM. We're going to build this today so that tomorrow, wow, we're going to have 200 top scientists and 10% of them are going to be women. Wow, that's incredible. I'm going to see the fruits of what I'm uh, seeding in the ground today. You can't really do that in Brazil because what is the future? Anyway, guys,
Yeah.
we've said it all. A hungry person knows what another hungry person feels, not a tax deduction. No planning. I want to thank everybody that hung out with us
Yeah,
tonight.
thank
This is
you,
another
everybody. It was a
another
pleasure.
long one,
It was.
but great topics. Only because, well, because I picked it. One, I wouldn't pick a shitty topic, but two, because there were so many of you out there chatting with us and interacting. I understand if some of you can't hang for the whole length of the show because we did go on for quite a bit, but then some of you come on a little later and you hang out. And thank you to all those who watched during the week. Thanks for the views. And hopefully, when all this COVID shit is a little bit settled down and we can travel a bit more, I'll get to hang with some of y'all. because it's been a while
Totally.
since I've seen.
We gotta get Kay out to the pub near my house, man. She lives right up the road in Jardine
Oh
Bumblebee.
shit! Yes, I'm gonna send her a message. I haven't been on Instagram as much in the last couple weeks or so. So she's hangs out mostly on Instagram. So I will see what she's up to because she was so sweet, and I would
She
really like to
was.
meet
She was
her.
a darling.
Good night, Beverly Horsey. This is around the time that we're on. Okay, so not next week, but maybe
Yes,
the week
yes.
after we will have you on because next week we got Renee coming on. Unless something happens, and then I'll get you on. Uh, but I'm pretty sure Renee is going to be on. Talking about dating in Brazil. That should be an interesting topic.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to get somebody else to come on with her who has real horror stories, like borderline date rape type horror stories.
Okay. Yeah,
Go
I'm
to
trying to get
bed.
my buddy. I'm trying to get my buddy Ron on. He's like 81 years old, so I kind of wanted to get his experience as a senior expat. But the problem is because he's 81 years old, he can't stay up until 10. He's too old.
No, we know what we can do though. Every once in a while, we can have a couple of pre-recordeds. Because I have this issue with a friend of mine from England that I want to get on, and the hours just don't match. So, we can do a pre-recorded show, not an issue, you know, um, and see how that works. Anyway, guys, I think
Thank you,
it's time
everybody.
to play my outro music because I like it, and it's like this. Goodbye.